Walmart comes out with a stunning announcement. Actually, to be honest with you, I'm a little surprised how instead of pushing back a lot on the tariffs, instead of pushing back on the Trump administration, you may be surprised at what they actually said. We're going to talk about that today. Also, we're going to discuss exactly what Pennsylvania is doing. It's not good. And what happens is when you push against things that are beneficial to Americans, then you get into an utter crisis. So if you're in Pennsylvania, you need to pay attention to the story. But also you need to pay attention to it if you have a Democratic leader in your state, because they're all pushing the same thing. And it makes a huge difference. And that's why we tell you to prepare, and you'll see why. Also, we're going to discuss two shortages. One you already know about, eggs. And what are we doing about it? I mean, actually, it's kind of getting to a point of emergency. Trump makes a monster announcement on it. And then there's another shortage that affects the whole world. What is it? It deals with steel, brass, and metal. We're going to discuss it because it deals with defense more than anything and your safety. Why you should be stockpiling these items today. Let's jump into this video. It starts right now. Hey guys, welcome to The Max. Thank you so very much for being here today. Again, we humbly ask that you come down here, give us a thumbs up if you like the content of today's video. Comment below, tell us what your thoughts are on these stories. And again, if you like our content, please subscribe to the channel, ring the bell. That way you know what's going on each and every day. Now let's jump into the stories of the day. First, let's talk about Walmart. Walmart sounds alarm, and the one alarm that actually kind of benefits Americans here. For the longest, you heard Target, Walmart, you heard all these big box stores saying, look, if these tariffs go through, I mean, we're going to raise the prices. We're going to raise the prices. We're going to raise the prices. Well, if you remember the last few weeks, we've been talking about how Walmart has been saying they see a dip in who is purchasing things because of discretionary income, and we see that people are using debt more. And there's a story on how the consumer credit is actually up this month because people are using credit cards versus true actual money. So Walmart comes out and makes this huge announcement, and it's not what you would have thought to say, hey, cut off the tariffs. Listen to what they said. Walmart tells China suppliers to absorb the cost of Trump's tariffs. Walmart's one of the biggest retailers is telling China-based suppliers to absorb the cost of President Trump's increased tariffs, so that way the price will not go up at the store. Now, this is what I love about this story. You know, I want to support mom and pops, and like we talked about before, I can tell you one thing, prime example. I can tell you one thing, and I may impact 20, 30, 40, 50, 60,000 people on this video. However, if someone like Joe Rogan tells you something, he may impact 4, 5, 6, 7 million people. The amount of impact that I have is not going to be nearly as much as someone like Joe Rogan or Matt Walsh or Ben Shapiro, something like that. Now, let's talk about Walmart and mom and pops again. Mom and pops are struggling in this economy. We know that. We want them to thrive. But their amount of impact to tell their suppliers not to go up on their price is not a big deal. When Walmart, on the other hand, says, China, even though you're wanting to put tariffs on America because they're trying to negotiate better trade with you, we want you to absorb the cost. Now, does that make Walmart the best player in the game? No, but what it does say is, you know, Walmart is probably one of the biggest importers of Chinese goods because of the amount of retail they do in America and across the world, of course. So when you hear someone of that impact, of that multitude, that big of a powerhouse on retailers say, China, look, either come to the table or you absorb your own tariffs and don't pass it along to us, which we would have to pass along to the American consumer. Now, that may benefit Walmart, but also it benefits you and me. There's a source that told Bloomberg News that Walmart is asking Chinese suppliers to cut their prices, some by as much as 10%, so that the increase in tariffs will not hit the people of America. Chinese suppliers reportedly trying to resist lowering the price because of their manufacturing. However, they know that Walmart is one of their biggest purchasers. A spokesman for Walmart told Bloomberg that the retailer is looking to keep the price as low as possible during this time for American consumers. The request from Walmart shows yet again that companies will look to absorb the tariffs cost despite claims that the people in the media and the people on the other side are saying they're going to pass it along as an extra tax to Americans. This is what I want to say again. This tariff situation, as bad as it looks for the stock market, I want you to go back. I want to think about this for a second. I heard Scott Bessent and Trump both say this, and it didn't make me think too much until just the last few hours and days. they said, we're not paying attention to the stock market right now. Now, when I heard that, I was like, that just sounds like that sounds like they're passing the buck off. And I mean, they are paying attention to the stock market. I mean, come on. But then there was a comment made, and I thought this was brilliant. And this is why they're billionaires and I'm not. He said, and this is from Scott Bessent and Trump, both the administration. He says, until we understand working for the American people, the Main Street Americans, until we could get their prices lower, which means the inflation has to come under control, the trade deficit have to come under control, and the debt has to come under control. Those things may hurt us on the Wall Street side, may hurt the markets, may hurt the ultra-rich billionaires and companies, but ultimately, most Americans could care less about the stock market. And what he was saying is he's speaking directly to the middle class and lower class, saying, look, if the working class, lower class, middle class Americans need a break, they don't need a break that Wall Street gets. They don't need the Wall Street market to do great. They need Walmart to be better. They need Target to be better. They need the stores that they shop at to be better. They need their insurance and their gas to cost less. So actually, when he made that comment, when Trump made the comment, I'm not looking at the stock market, I was like, that's kind of a dumb comment. But then I'm thinking that might be the most brilliant thing that I've heard in a while. Because when they all of a sudden dissected it, they're just saying, look, I could care less how much of the rich ultra billionaires that's in the market is making right now. We need to focus on Americans. I thought that was huge. And then to hear this story from Walmart to say, look, we don't want to raise prices on Americans. This actually could be a true huge move. And if we see more retailers do the same thing, if Walmart all of a sudden has Walgreens, they have CVS, they have all these big brands, they have Under Armour, they have all these big major retailers. Of course, throw Home Depot in there, throw Lowe's in there, throw Dick's, throw Academy, I don't care, throw whoever you want, Target. If all of a sudden you see these retailers say, look, we're going to stand with Americans here, and you can absorb some, I can even absorb some, but we're not going to go up on the price, so we're going to negotiate that. Think about how much of an influence that would be to see the 5 biggest retailers come in and say to China, to India, to whomever, look, we don't want prices raised on the goods. You absorb it, you're making plenty of money, and I need to make sure that our economy's back afloat doing well because we're going to support the president and what he says. Did you know that India came out and stated that they're going to lower their tariffs of goods coming in and out of America because of Trump's trade practices? Meaning we're going to have a better reciprocating situation when it comes to India. See, what people don't realize is, for instance, if we send one of our automobiles over to Europe, it's supposed to be our best friend, our best trade partner, they charge a 10% tariff. So you don't know that, though. You know what we charge on their cars coming in? 2.5%. Now, help me understand that. All Trump is saying is we just need to charge 10% to them too. If they're going to charge us 10, we need to charge 10. Doesn't that make sense? See, what happens though is you don't hear the whole narrative when we hear the news media and the Democrats spin it, or even the rhinos, or even tech billionaires that are on the left. So when we hear about tariffs, just listen again. Automobiles that we send to other areas of the world, they tariff us. Automobiles coming here, we tariff them about a 1 or 2% of what they're tariffing us. So the even playing field is actually huge, and we need to make sure that we're getting there. And I love actually what Walmart said here, that, look, just absorb the cost because we're not going to put that cost on Americans. Now, can Walmart cut their prices? Yeah, but to be honest with you, sadly, Walmart is usually going to be the lowest price. And if they're telling their suppliers to absorb it, that can only benefit you as an American. And again, we have this big problem because Congress is still spending money like crazy. Like to cut the deficit, this is what the Republicans say. They want to cut the deficit 1 to 2 trillion. And so that sounds good, doesn't it? Because we've been talking about we need to cut 1 to 2 trillion off our budget in 1 year. I mean, that's what needs to happen because we're in a deficit. Republicans want to cut the deficit 1 to 2 trillion over 10 years. What a laughing stock. See, that's how they spend this. And that's why, to me, as good as our administration can be, Congress is still, they're really a thorn in our side. I want you to listen to what Eli Crane just said, which is a congressman. He said, the real question I have is why did Congress sit back and let the federal government become the mess it has become for the last few decades? They've been signing off on all this debt. They've been signing off the failing of the economy. They've been signing off giving all these free passes to all these people importing goods and then charging us more on exporting. So really, we can't blame the the trash and the stuff that's happening right now, you can't blame it on Trump, because what Eli Crank just said, the same thing. He said, Congress has been letting this happen for decades. The past presidents has known about these tariff problems, and they've done nothing about it. So they've allowed us to be in a bad situation, all in the name of looking good to the world, while we're making the American people fail. Here's the thing, though. What does free trade actually benefit? Wall Street. Because these big places are selling stuff all over the world. They can come to our markets and actually invest in our markets. So who does that benefit? It benefits the bigger players. So I love that what Trump and Bassett said was, we're not worried about Wall Street right now. They've made plenty of money. They're doing okay. We're looking at what we can do to benefit Americans. And Walmart kind of stood up and said, yeah, I agree with that. Now, does that mean Walmart's perfect? Does that mean they're not going to come out with some kind of crazy policy tomorrow? No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying we need to call balls and strikes. And to be honest with you, that was a pretty good deal there. And I love the fact that they're standing up for the American people. Now I want to move on to Pennsylvania. Now I know I don't really talk about states too much and the things that they believe, but I do want to bring a thought pattern to this. PA faces, and this is an article from Zero Hedge, it says, Pennsylvania faces looming power crisis after Governor Shapiro's electricity tax and plant closures. This is the same thing happening with the gas situation, the Keystone XL that was all canceled under Biden, all this stuff with all the NGOs with climate. Did you realize that Elon Musk said a lot of the NGOs were just flat out scams? And all this money that was going to quote unquote climate change and all this stuff that was going to help the environment actually was just money laundering. That's all it was. He said there was no electricity, and if it was so minimal that it was not actually helping any situation. Prime example here. That's why our gas prices were up, and now that's why Pennsylvania is facing a crisis when it comes to their power. It says, not unlike the rest of the country, which will soon have aggressing new power needs and data centers powering AI and other facets of electricity, Pennsylvania is also facing a major crisis. A power crisis. Nearly a year after Josh Shapiro promised a new era of energy, touting job creation, lower utility bills, and clean energy investment. Listen to that word, investment. That's how they trick you. Investment means not what you think it means. Pennsylvania sees little progress. Instead, he promotes short-term fixes and questionable deals that do nothing to curb the cost. It's actually costed more to have energy in Pennsylvania. And not only that, they're in a crisis because they're saying, well, we may have cut a lot of the electricity off and the gas off because all in the name of clean energy investments. What are we actually doing? Kind of reminds you of what California did 20, 30 years ago, and now they're living with the repercussions of it. Brownouts, blackouts. Well, Pennsylvania's in a cold area. It gets pretty chilly sometimes. And so when you hear these leaders of these Democratic states pushing these investments in clean energy, what they're doing is they're taking your money. They're taking your money as the taxpayers and actually not benefiting you whatsoever. They said the energy cost hasn't went down, and for the amount that it may go down a few cents or a few dollars, the amount of taxation that we're actually feeling because of it, because all this extra investment, it doesn't weigh out and doesn't benefit the American people, and especially the Pennsylvania people at this point. So he says what we're actually seeing, and what this article was saying was, the more that we see these Democratic leaders and these establishment people push these crazy cockamamie schemes of investment, what they're actually doing is hurting the American people more and hurting their states more. Now, you can say what you want. Look at what Florida's doing. Now, yes, it costs a lot for property down there. Texas is starting to go up. Now, here's the difference. This is why I'm not afraid of property costing more, and I'm against property tax. But listen to this. This is where I think we're moving from an income tax society to a consumer tax society, which is a phenomenal thing. If I want to buy the land, then I have to pay the tax one time, not property tax forever. I'm not saying that. If I want to buy something at the store, I should have to pay the tax. Okay, I'm choosing to purchase something. Versus income tax and property tax as it sits now, where they're just charging me no matter what I'm doing. Just for working, I get penalized. Just for owning property, I get penalized. So I think what you're starting to see, some of these good populous states are moving towards no income tax, no property tax. And what you're purchasing, and the more it costs to buy the land, the more it costs to buy the goods, you're choosing to buy those as a option versus it being a non-negotiable like these Democratic states are doing. So for instance, California, you have so many excess taxes for all this new energy, all this new investment. Pennsylvania is starting to do that. Michigan is starting to do that. Other liberal states are starting to do that. I mean, look at the taxes in New York. They started adding new taxes. So you're not getting benefits from the quote-unquote investment. You're actually getting extra tax. However, like Vivek, who is running for Ohio, doesn't mean he's going to win, but he's pushing again for no property tax, no income tax. Florida, same thing. And you're starting to see Louisiana, Texas, all these say no state income tax. I wish that Mississippi do the same thing. I think they're doing great lowering the tax, but the bottom line is if you start seeing more states go to a no income tax, no property tax, but then make the consumer tax either a little bit more equated to where, yes, if I'm purchasing something, I may, instead of pay 7% state income tax, I may pay 20%. Doesn't make it right, doesn't like tax, period. But ultimately, I would rather be paying tax on something I'm wanting to purchase that I don't have to purchase unless I want to, versus it being charged to me out of my check with no bearing on it. You don't control what tax you pay. You have to pay it. So it's a non-negotiable tax versus a consumer tax. I think the consumer tax can win out. And I think all these stories with the blackouts, the fact that these investments that like Pennsylvania Democrat leaders doing and governor of California and all these other liberal states are doing, is they're basically trying to make you believe that they're going to cut your prices. And they may cut your energy bill by $3. But what they don't tell you is they're charging you an extra 3% in your tax for this next year. And also you may have brownouts and blackouts like California has faced. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy that we take the bait and what they're saying at the same time they're raking us over the coals. Just like Eli Crane said. He said, we can talk about cutting the budget, and as a congressman, you've heard Thomas Massey say this, but what our leadership's actually doing is they're still spending money. We just act like we're not spending money and we just try to hide it and all the other rigmarole that we're doing. Actually, we're the ones that's caused the problem. Now, like there's been a few people talk about in the Fed, on the Congress, that you've heard, no more stock trading on the Democrats and Republicans. But those things will not change, and those things will not happen the same way that cutting the budget and cutting to a balanced budget with these congressmen will not take place, because they're all bought and paid for. I think every congressman should have to wear patches. You know how in basketball and in soccer and in NASCAR, they have to wear the patches of all the advertisements of who's buying them, who's paying for them, who's their sponsors. I think our congressmen should have to wear the same. On their suit, they should have all these patches of all these lobbyists and all these advertisers and sponsors and all these kickbacks they're getting. So that way we at least know who they're bought and paid for. I mean, we have to do it for sponsors, don't we? It'd be pretty nice. And that way I think we would see, for instance, like Josh Shapiro in Pennsylvania. Who's arranging this? Why do we want to see the people of Pennsylvania struggle and not have a electricity grid that's worth something? Who's actually paying for that to fall through? I'd like to know. All right, last story, shortages. Now, we know about the egg shortage. This is from another article from Zero Hedge. It says, U.S. scours the world for egg supplies after Biden's insane slaughter of 150 million chickens. It came out that they said first it was going to be 50, then it was going to be 80 million, it was 100 billion. Now it's came out that it was literally 150 million of egg-laying chickens that have been killed. So all of a sudden, why do you think eggs are going to be hard to get? Well, because they killed 150 million chickens. Here's the difference, and I want to bring this up. I'm sitting here, and people talk about our water glass eggs all the time. Here's another 50 chickens that are in the incubator. Getting about 2 dozen eggs out of our egg layers every day. Now, I own a farm. I mean, it's just a homestead farm. It's just for us. So I know everybody can't do that. But this time of year is when eggs do tend to be laid more on farms. If you can find market gardens and you can find different farmers and homesteads and backyard chicken operations, they're going to be in surplus of eggs right now. They're going to put a lot of them up like I do. But this may be the time to learn how to water glass. This may be the time to start buying some of those and dehydrating them and put them up in the freezer. There's different ways you can do that. The only thing that worries me is if you start seeing us buying all these eggs from overseas. I understand what Trump is doing. He's trying to get the egg supply up so that way our prices can go down, because right now eggs are crazy expensive. But how do we know, and where do we know these eggs are coming from? What scares me is you're going to start hearing these big bureaucrats say, well, why don't we just manufacture them in a warehouse? I mean, we can make some kind of fake egg like we're doing chicken and meat right now, and that might be the best thing for us. I'm scared that's what you're going to actually see. Let's go on with the story. It says the Biden-Harris regime questionable of course, but destroyed the food supply chain when it comes to egg layers. Millions upon millions upon millions gone. To then stabilize, it's going to take really 2 to 3 years, because you're going to build your chickens back up. Then you're also going to have them egg laying again, and to them to again incubate. I mean, that's a lot of replacement there. It's going to take a lot to do that. You know what else happened when they culled those chickens? A lot of those farmers lost everything they had. They didn't make any money back. They got paid a little price stipend, but a lot of them got out of the business. So what are we doing? We're actually causing the problems. Now, I love the fact that, again, what this administration is doing, because they know eggs is a big deal, of course, for most families, especially economics, because eggs are in just about everything, and it's a staple for Main Street America. But my problem with this whole situation is bad leadership makes for bad policy. And that's exactly what we saw with the culling of these chickens. That's what we see in Pennsylvania with Josh Shapiro. That's what we see with Gavin Newsom. That's what we see with even Republican leaders too. It's what we see in the Congress. Bad leadership makes for bad problems. And this is a prime example of that. Now, one more shortage that I think is very important, and again, this is why I've been buying it for years. This is what I've been telling you to buy for years. I want you to listen to this. Critical metal for bombs, munitions, and bullets is in a mega squeeze amid global shortage. The critical mineral used to defense and military applications, particularly munitions, is facing a severe global shortage. The crisis threatens supply chains across U.S. and Europe at a time of stockpiling of weapons due to the depletedness of what we're sending to flipping Ukraine. Bloomberg reports that antimony prices have jumped nearly fourfold compared to a year ago because Beijing tightened exports last year. This is why Trump is trying to do a lot more negotiating and trying to find rare earth minerals, because this rare earth mineral for these bigger suppliers comes from China and from different parts of the world that may not like us as much. It says that this has triggered a scramble among Western defense firms to secure new supplies of critical metals for bullet cores, explosives, and shrapnel metals. It said that this actually could cause the normal Main Street brass and stockpiles to go down or cost more. So kind of like the eggs going up, what have I told you to buy? And I've got tons of stockpile videos dealing with projectiles and certain style of metal that we've been discussing. Ammo. You cannot go without, because that is defense of who you are and your family. Not only that, now we're saying that there's a national crisis where we're running to an ample shortage of defense. So how is America supposed to protect itself from China, who has the goods that we're needing to literally make the munitions for defense? We have to find them. There you go. That's why Trump is playing for Canada. That's why Trump is playing for Greenland. That's why Trump is playing for the Panama Canal. That's why Trump is trying to make different agreements with different players across the world, because he sees that the rare earth minerals and mining and trying to find things in our earth can only benefit us. That's why I think he's looking at AI. Even though I'm not a big AI proponent, I think that's why he's looking at AI, because he knows if munitions are not able to be gotten to a bulk stockpile, he better find other ways to face problems and scrutiny across the world, especially when it comes to defending our country. And AI may be the answer there. Not that I'm for it. I'm just being honest. I believe that's why you're seeing the move towards AI, especially when it comes to defense spending. Guys, let me know your thoughts on these stories. Oh, the Walmart one was great. I think this is a good move. I love the fact that we're exposing some of these leaders for how bad they've led us. And now it's time to make sure that we're stockpiling not only the eggs, but we have to protect the eggs. And that's things that you need to purchase too. Guys, thank you for watching. Again, if you like this content, please go down here and press subscribe. More than anything, we hope that you find peace in God and take care of your family. And that's why we do these videos, to help you prepare and to be ready for anything that comes your way. God bless.